Welcome to the Manager Matt podcast show. The show is designed to give you solutions to your day-to-day management and leadership problems. It's hosted by Matthew Haddock, a frontline manager and leader with over 25 years of experience. If you're ready, then let's get on with the show.
Welcome to the Manager Matt podcast show, a weekly show designed for you as a leader and manager to get the results you've always wanted. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the show so you can never miss an episode and share it with anyone else who might get the benefit. Right, without any more delay, let's get on with this week's show. Welcome to the Manager Matt podcast show. Hope everyone is doing well out there and you're getting the results that you want through the teams around you. And that's always the important thing, making sure you've got the team around you doing the jobs you need to do, giving them direction, giving them leadership and giving them motivation. Always the things I stand by and always will. Okay, so what's today's show about? Well, last week we talked around those tough challenges you're going to get as a manager. And this week I want to talk about the tough questions you're going to get as a leader and a manager. And the first thing to think about is, in a leadership position, you are going to get tough questions, okay? Let me let you into a little secret about this. You won't know all the answers. People might think you know all the answers, but you don't know all the answers. But you are in a position where you're going to get asked questions. And if you haven't yet been asked really difficult questions, the first thing you've got to ask yourself, well, am I in a senior enough position for people to ask me those questions? And also, am I really ready to make that choice? Because as soon as you jump up to a certain level, you're going to get questions. And when I say levels, throughout businesses, you're going to have group leaders, team leaders, shift managers, area leaders, production managers, whatever you're going to call them, supply chain managers, store managers. Each one of those, deputy store managers, don't forget the deputy store managers, each one of those will have a certain level of authority, and they will also carry a level of being a part of the business. So if you're going to be at a certain level, the guy and girl above you, you're going to expect them to know a bit more. You're going to expect them to understand a little bit more. So it's going to be part of your role to deal with questions that are sometimes tough and challenging. Now, you'll be expected to balance a couple of things when you do the answer on this. You're going to have to balance the company, and maybe there'll be some chance that in there might be some stuff you can or can't say. You've got to balance yourself and your integrity and the intentions you're meant to be doing. And, of course, the person asking the question, their work. They're going to be wanting an answer for a reason. Now, so how do you do all that? Well, let's try to explain. First part of this is to be ready. Now, I'm not saying that you're like a coiled spring waiting for someone just to jump out and give you a tough question, but you have to be on your game when you're leading. You have to be able to field a question, a tough question, and then be able to give an answer that is within the lines that you're being given. So where do tough questions come from? Well, they could come any time. As we know, you can be walking down a corridor and get ambushed. You could be in a canteen, car park, smoke shelter, at your desk. Someone just comes up to your desk, can I have a minute? Can I have a word? And shuts the door behind them and I really think this, and this. And this could be something that really catches you. There could be a very, very simple, and you might not think it is a tough question. But that person asking it is definitely asking it for the right reason. They could come in and say, well, we're supposed to made all this profit and this business is meant to be so good and you keep telling us how well we're doing. Well, how come these sandwiches are so expensive in canteen? And you think, well, I can deal with that. But actually, in that person's mind, it's quite a tough question. They want to know. And if you've got a culture that people do come and open up like that, brilliantly. Why not? Have a culture someone can come and talk to you around the expensive sandwiches or the lack of tea and coffee or milk. But that's not a bad place to be. But like I say, be ready. You need to be on your game. You can't plan for every question. There's going to be some that are going to be a bit of a surprise to you. There's going to be some that you might not know the answer. Well, you're definitely not going to know the answer because, as I said in many times, you don't know the answer to everything. And lots of things changes. There's lots of things going on. Normally you get really tough questions when you are going through a process of change or there's a feeling of unease in the business. Things are not going to the plan that you'd expect. There's a lot of that that can cause people to have tough questions. And of course, you need to sometimes be able to field general questions on the hoof and talk to the person. Not wrong with that. If they're more specific or more personal questions actually about them. I remember a couple of times when I've been in meetings and they've been very much around a subject. I won't say what subject or the company. And all of a sudden you'll have a question from someone at the back throwing in absolutely personal about, well, what if and when this happened to me? And you've got to kind of say, I can take you on board. I see there's a lot of passion in this. I think it's not quite the right time or the forum to answer that one, but I'm very happy to engage with you outside of here. Nothing wrong with that with an answer. You need to read the room, understand what people are happy and not happy about. And that can be difficult. The higher you up in the organisation, the more you get left in a position where you don't really read the rooms as well as others do. That's just the nature of it. You do different jobs and you're expected to have a different lens on what's going on. But there is going to be a time where you really do need to use your direct members of your team to read the rooms, make sure things are happening, see what's going on, get a feel for what questions are going to come to you, especially if there is, like I said, a lot of change going on. You need to be speaking to your directs, what's been mentioned, what's the topics out there. Has anyone said something about, what's going on in X place? So at least you can get an idea of it. So that's the first part, be ready. Second bit, and again, this is a part of a really something I'm really strong on, is about being honest. If you first get asked a question, make sure you are as truthful as you can and answer. And most of the time, that's not going to be a problem. Most of the time, if you're in a position of leadership, you're going to be able to answer 95% of the questions without any problem. There isn't going to be an issue. There is going to be some conflict on certain things that you're not going to be able to share. Either those are things that you've been told not to share, and that's perfectly reasonable for you to have said that this is going to happen, but you're not going to share it. You could be under a non-disclosure, and that's something else that you've got to take into account. But there's also times where it would be inappropriate to comment, say, on a certain area of topic that you didn't want the individual to comment on, or you didn't think it was really appropriate to comment on that. It could be around somebody's health or someone's attendance or a performance issue, not something you really want to be talking about. So be aware that you can't answer every question, but to be honest with the questions you can. And of course, be respectful. That person wants to know. It's important to them. People will worry, and they will definitely worry when there's silence. See the silence there? Did you get a bit worried? Yeah, there's a silence will be filled by people making their own assumptions. And of course, the assumptions are the mothers of all failures. And of course, people's perceptions are their reality. So you need to be very aware of how those play when you're answering your questions. But if you built trust over time with your teams, and you've got an open relationship that someone can challenge you with a tough question, then most of the time you're going to be able to give a good, straight answer. So let's move on to what to say. Well, be straight to the point. If you're going to be able to answer that question, be straight to the point. As I said, if you can't answer it, then say you can't answer it. I'm sorry, I can't disclose that. But if you can answer it, then be straight to the point. Don't sugarcoat it. Don't put it on this is what, that's what I think, but be straight to the point. Don't sugarcoat it. And tell people you can't answer that. Then tell them why. Say, sorry, I can't answer that due to X, Y, and Z. They'll respect you for that. Try to answer directly. It's very easy to watch the people on the news, the politicians, answering or not answering questions. But what you've got to do as a leader is make sure that you're not the politician in the room. You're going to answer that question. You're head of an area. Your answer is important. Those people will respect you for answering it directly, as clear as you can, and to the point. And like I said, if you don't know the answer, not that you can't share, this is different. You don't know the answer to that, I'll get back to you. Thanks, great question, but I don't know the answer. Let me speak to someone and get back to you. There's nothing wrong with that. When to say it. So we know what to say, when to say it. Open and honest, as I said, all the time, as much as you can. And of course, make sure that you're listening to the answers that are coming back. So if you've asked or given an answer to a tough question and as a follow-up, make sure you're listening. Answer the question that's been asked. Politicians are great at not doing that, are they? They'll say, what about the economy, Mr. So-and-so or Mrs. So-and-so? And they go, that is something I really want to get into, but let's think about the more important things. And obviously they sidetrack a question that they want to answer. It's an art in itself, but not something that I've been very good at doing. So really be honest and direct and try to answer that question as much as you can. Now, how to be safe on tough questions. Let's move to that 5% of questions that are going to be in a position where it's more awkward for you. So how do you be safe in those questions? Don't make stuff up. Don't ever make stuff up. Don't try to fill the gaps with stuff that you think you know. If you don't know it, don't say it. Be aware of the audience. There could be people in there who have an axe to grind. There could be people who are looking for information to have a purpose to take it forward and get you in a certain awkward position as a leader. There's lots of people who tried to do that. And of course, on the reverse, people can sense the BS, so they know when it's not a genuine answer. So just don't go down there, but be aware of that audience. Remember, people remember your comments. So what you're going to say, you might say it in a corridor and not think more of it. Before you know it, it's gone all the way around the workplace and it's coming back to you with many, many Chinese whispers, as they used to say, added onto it. But of course, if you're not making stuff up, it's not going to be a problem. But just be aware of that people will remember your comments. Your voice carries a lot as a manager and a leader. You're going to push that out. People are going to hear you and think, that's gospel. That must be true because X or Y has said it. Check, check, check. Not a mic check, that. Just check, check, check to make sure that the message you're saying is on point. If it is this 5% that you're unsure of and you're not sure of, don't answer it. Make sure you check with the people around you, either in that area or the supervisor of yourself, that these are common knowledge. There's also another good tip that when you're in the middle of a meeting and someone said something and you think, well, that's interesting, maybe just clarify. Or can we just clarify? Sorry to stop you there. Is this a conversation we can have with others, or is this a conversation that needs to stay in this room? A lot of times people will say at the start, this is a conversation that needs to stay in this room. Whatever's said in this room stays in this room. How truthful that is? Well, I think you're all long enough in the tooth, or maybe not, to listen to it. If you're not, be aware when people say it could stay in this room and it gets out, that can be the nature of the beast. So just be aware that stuff you think you're saying in confidence can come back. So, of course, if you're being honest and open and checking your facts, it shouldn't be a problem. So those are my tips for tough questions. Let's go around them once more. Be ready for them. They can come anywhere. And just be aware as much as you can that people are going to look to you to answer questions. Be as honest as you can. Say what you're going to say. Make sure it's straight to the point. Don't sugarcoat it. Make sure you're saying it in a place that's consistent all the time. Be open and honest, but of course make sure that you are saying the right things. And when you're dealing with a tough question and you're not sure about it, A, don't make stuff up, and B, check, check, check. Well, I'd love to check if you've been listening to the show. So if you can send me your feedback to managermattpodcast@gmail.com. Love to interact on new and old topics. Love for you to give us some advice on when you've had tough questions and how you've dealt with them. But anyway, that's it for Manager Matt this week. Thanks for listening and goodbye.
Thank you so much for listening to this Manager Matt podcast. We hope you found it interesting, helpful and actionable. One last thing, please leave a quick review on iTunes or with your podcast provider, as it helps to spread the word of Manager Matt. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe to the podcast, and if you did like anything in particular, send an email to managermattpodcast@gmail.com or visit managermatt.co.uk for more content. Feedback is a gift, so let's keep giving. See you next week.